All right, Sean Ray here for Generation Iron with another story. This one's a little bit on the darker side. I told you guys that I bore witness to, or at least was on the sidelines, when some of these events in our industry happen. It's the darker side. And of course, I'm going to get started back in 1995. Ray McNeil, only one year prior, had shared a room with myself and Kevin Levrone at the '94 Mr. Olympia in Atlanta, Georgia. Ray McNeil won the North America Championships to turn pro. He was a military man, and he was married to a military woman by the name of Killer Sally McNeil. They had 2 kids together that I believe Ray was raising as his own. And as it were going, in 1995, Ray McNeil was training for the Pro Ironman Championships taking place in Redondo Beach. And I think it was maybe a week or so prior to that competition, on Valentine's Day, he was brutally and maliciously gunned down by his then wife, shot with 2 shotgun blasts, once in the stomach and the other in the face. Actually shot off the jaw. But he was still alive and breathing for some time before he was actually discovered. And Sally McNeil made no bones about it. They were in a domestic, fiery relationship that included infidelity and all kinds of gory type things when you talk about raising 2 kids together as husband and wife. However, Sally McNeil was no wallflower. Sally was wrestling. She was a former bodybuilder. She was a Marine, and she certainly knew how to handle a gun. And the proof was in that fatal gunshot wound to Ray McNeil, who lost his life tragically in the name of love. And when that happened, it shook the bodybuilding industry and its foundation. Not only that, but there were a lot of military people that Ray was friends with. Ray was also a comedian. Ray may have been a lot of things, but nobody deserves to be murdered, not alone, not to mention being gunned down and leaving 2 kids orphaned. Sally McNeil still in a prison today, some 20-something years later, and she's not the only one that kind of lost her mind. In 1997, I flew out to St. Kitts. Bertil Fox, who was 5th place in the 1983 Mr. Olympia Championships, was fully retired. He had moved back from England to St. Kitts to open his gym right on top of his house. Actually, matter of fact, the house that he lived in, he sat on top of the gym right in front of a nice shrimp bay in St. Kitts. Kind of a homecoming for him, and he had just opened his gym. I went out there, did a seminar, did the opening with his people. His ex-girlfriend, or I should say his then-girlfriend, Leoka Brown, picked me up from the airport. She might have been 20, and I got to say Bertil was probably in his mid-40s. Only several months later did I read in the paper that Bertil Fox was picked up for a double homicide. He had murdered and shot Leoka Brown in the face or in the chest and killed her. But the twist to that story was that he also shot her mother and killed her as well. And it was then that they were looking to seek the death penalty. And St. Kitts, I believe, has a different type of governing body over there. And they were talking about hanging the guy at the gallows and putting him in jail for a double life sentence. Today, he sits in a prison cell. And the media made it out to be that it was a steroid rage. I can tell you categorically that Bertil Fox was fully retired, was not taking steroids when this happened. The dude was freaking crazy. He was a very jealous man. And if he couldn't have Leoka, nobody could. As a matter of fact, she had moved on. She had a boyfriend. He had gone to England to do some business in England and came back. And they were already broken up, and he went and killed this girl in spite of the fact that she moved on with her life and then took her mother out in the process. There's not a lot of sympathy you can have for a world-class bodybuilder that does something like that. But it really does hit home when you know the other person, because he loved bodybuilding. He was one of the bodybuilding's best, strongest guys, huge arms, a likable guy. It was tragic because I saw potential in Bertil Fox beyond a life of bodybuilding, and he seemed to be in a very comfortable place, and then he snapped. And it happens. A guy that I know from Northern California, Gordon Kimbrough. He was dating a girl named Christy Ramsey. I'd gone up to San Francisco and trained at the gym with Dennis Newman, a former California champion and a USA winner. And me and Dennis went up to this gym, and we saw this cute girl while we were working out, and then Gordon comes in, and we find out that it's his girlfriend, and we all kind of have a laugh, and Gordon had another brother that was also a bodybuilder, and we all spent that day together. And lo and behold, I look back over my shoulder, and Gordon's in the news. He held the police at bay for several hours with a needle to his neck full of Pine Sol, threatening to kill himself, only after he had strangled the life out of his then-girlfriend, Christy Ramsey. Killed her dead in a jealous rage. They weren't even boyfriend and girlfriend at the time this happened, and he took her life. Not too far away from here in Northern California, and Gordon Kimbrough was sentenced to a life prison sentence. Gordon was a very good trainer. He was a very good bodybuilder, but he was a very jealous man who just simply snapped. Now, why do I tell you these dark stories? Because they are part of our lives. It's part of the landscape in our industry. They're not the only 3 people that snapped. And, Ray lost his life, and Bertle sits in a jail. And, of course, Gordon sits in a jail. And they're in good company. We know Craig Titus and Kelly Ryan had murdered their live-in assistant and took flight from California or from Las Vegas to Massachusetts, where they were caught while Kelly was getting a pedicure and Craig was sipping a soda in the car, planning their escape to Cyprus that had no extradition. And they drugged them back to Las Vegas. They put them on trial. And, of course, Craig eventually admitted to strangling, injecting a lethal dose of opiates into her system, and then duct taping her face, stuffing her in the car, and lighting it on fire in the desert in Las Vegas. While they fled and they traded in their only car for another one, and they wound up in Massachusetts under arrest. And, of course, Craig copped to the incident, and Kelly got 15 years, and Craig got 22 to 66 years. They sit in the jail today as a result of that snapping situation. So when bodybuilders snap, things happen, and people want to blame it on steroids. Craig wasn't on steroids at the time. Kelly wasn't on steroids. They weren't even bodybuilding. Craig was doing recreational drugs. They were so high, they probably don't even recall what actually took place. But it has to be in the annals of one of bodybuilding's goriest murders of all time. And that was Craig Titus, the Golden Boy. He won the USA Championships, trained right around the corner here at Gold's Gym. And Kelly Ryan was a former Arnold Classic champion with numerous pro titles to her credit. They snapped and they sit in the jail. Why do I tell you these things? It's because these observations remind us of a time and a place of athletes gone bad, and it happens. Do we have sympathy for those athletes? As people, we do. But the things that they did to these other people are heinous and unforgivable acts. And it behooves me to recognize Christy Ramsey, to remember Ray McNeil, and of course Melissa Ann James as people that were here. They weren't deserving to die. And I want to include Leoka Brown and her mother in this. And so while time continues to pass and those people that are guilty continue to rot away in jail, we are sympathetic to their innocent victims who lost their lives. Sean Ray reporting for Generation Iron.